Topic Pearl by Asma Siddiqui. The tiny drop falling from the sky seemed hesitant. The wide swath of sea was splashing and crashing loudly against the beach as if beckoning the raindrop towards it. Quiet and calm, lying on the seashore were the oyster shells with their mouths open, looking expectant. The raindrop looked doubtful. What should it do? Should it become a part of the never ending sea, just like all the other drops that were mingling into the sea, or should it drop itself into the oyster shell, live a life of solitude, and eventually turn into a precious pearl? The one that could be adored by one and all. The waves looked happy, calling the raindrop to join in and dance with them. Ignoring their calls, the raindrop decided to slip into the oyster shell. Ahsan, a young boy of 15, walked along the beach in Karachi. He was perplexed, indecisive, and unsure, feeling the same way as the tiny raindrop. His friends had all opted for the science group in the intermediate, but he was still unsure of what he should take. His head ached severely. The world seemed to be spinning. He could hear his friends' voices echo in his mind. People who do not take up the science group at this stage end up nowhere. His future looked hazy. Essen was allergic to maths the most, but now there seemed to be no other choice than to opt for it. After all, this looked like the sure shot recipe for success. There was no guidance from the school, from the government, or from the college. Whom should he consult? The waves lashed onto the seashore, striking against the rocks with force, as if showing their anger at Essen for being indecisive. Even if he ignored the voices of his friends, Essen thought how could he let go of the dreams and expectations of his parents? Besides, his elders could never choose anything wrong for him, could they? He remembered the time when, as a small kid, he had asked his mother, "How does the moon shine?" She smiled and replied, "The sun is responsible for its radiance and the white light it generates." But why doesn't it have its own light? How can it take something which is not its own? Isn't that wrong? He asked perplexedly. Because it cannot create its own light. But why it should? His mother smiled broadly at his confused look. The moon is weak, and weak things cannot create. Essen felt weak. His mother was right. Weak things cannot produce their own light, they can only borrow it. But perhaps the society he was living in had always accepted people with weak convictions, as they maintain a peaceful environment, no questions, no opposition, no breaking the norms, just live and let live like everyone else does. He looked up at the rain coming down and thought about whether each was the same or had a different destiny. Each raindrop could become part of the sea, or it could turn into a pearl.